3 months ago, I started a reading challenge, and the goal was to read about one book a week. And in that time, I read about a dozen books, and many of them were fiction. This really surprised me because I've never really been a fiction reader. As a science graduate, I thought the fiction books were just elaborate stories, and that I could better use my time by sticking to non-fiction or self-help, learning about things like history, business, and even more science. But it wasn't until I started reading more fiction books where I realized how enjoyable they could be, how they could draw you in like an addictive video game, and how you can relate to the characters as if you would a close friend. They were more than just elaborate stories. These novels were representations of complex relationships, universal struggles that you and I would face today, and insights to both the moral and wicked capacity of humans. Reading fiction was not only helping me form portraits of a world that I never experienced before, but it was changing the way I thought about my real day-to-day life. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Sebastian, a medical student from Australia, and in this video I'll be sharing what I've learned so far in my book reading challenge. I'll explain how fiction has changed the way I think about things, the benefits of reading fiction, and share some of my favourite novels in the past 3 months. How fiction is changing the way I think. So a few months back when I read The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, yes, I know, I'm a little bit of a hopeless romantic, but when I was reading it, I really started to feel the joy that came with these newfound friendships, with newfound love. I just started to feel the sadness and the pain that a lot of the characters were going through. Although I didn't have a lived experience of cancer like the characters in the novel, it made me think back to times in my life where I've seen family members go through struggles, through sickness, how they persevered, how they won or lost their battles. There was a quote from the book that really stood out to me. "I cannot tell you how thankful I am for our little infinity. I wouldn't trade it for the world. You gave me a forever within the numbered days, and I'm grateful." For many of us, we get caught up in our assignments, increasing workloads, relationship problems, and it's quotes like these that make you really stop and think about what you should be grateful for. Fiction also allows you to see the world from a fresh perspective, one that's free from your own biases, your own prejudices. When I was reading the novel White Fang by Jack London, it was written from the perspective of a wolf. London portrays an icy, barren landscape where everybody's fighting for survival. And the issues and the mysteries that trouble this lone wolf mirror many of our own mysteries. He had no conscious knowledge of death, but like every animal in the wild, he possessed the instinct of death. It was the very essence of the unknown. It was the sum of the terrors of the unknown, about which he knew nothing, and about which he feared everything. Death is a universal leveler, a fate to all animals. And even through the story of this lone wolf, we see that in times of hardship, in times of struggle, it's all about having the willpower to press on, to keep going even when you feel like giving up. Reading novels like these really show that fiction is more than just a story. It's a way we can discover more about ourselves, empathize with the characters in the novels, and think more deeply about why we value the things that we do. The benefits of reading fiction. It's a pretty remarkable phenomenon that we can read words from a page and then construct mental lives of story characters. We open up a book and gain immediate access to the intricacies of someone else's mind. Not only does it open a window to the mind of the fictional character, it opens up a window to our own mind as we reflect on our own decisions and issues facing our real social world. Fiction induces the process of simulating characters and environments, the mental, social, emotional factors and feelings that these characters are going through. And this sounds all great and all, but what is the evidence showing the benefits of reading fiction? A meta-analysis in 2011 showed that story processing overlapped with many regions of the core mentalizing network. And this core mentalizing network consists of the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, and the temporal parietal junction. In simple terms, these are basically regions in the brain involved with decision-making, emotional salience, and self-processing. Fiction can also provide us with stories of different cultures, countries, people, and offers a way that we can learn about their social interaction when we wouldn't have been able to otherwise. A recent meta-analysis of 14 studies showed that fiction readers outperformed non-fiction and non-readers on social cognitive tasks. Another meta-analysis found that fiction reading had a larger correlation with the social cognitive measures compared to non-fiction reading. And so this evidence suggests that fiction may play a role in terms of our ability to process emotion and to empathize with other people in real life. There was another experiment on undergraduate students where they got them to read a short excerpt of The Lady with the Toy Dog. The experimental group experienced significantly greater change in self-reported experience of personality traits, and the control group were those who read a comparison text that had the same content but that was written in a documentary form. In this way, fiction may have a role in facilitating personal growth and maturation. So whether you're a fiction reader or not, There's plenty of benefits to be gained by picking up a good fiction novel. Some of my favorites. So the first book that I recommend picking up is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, and it takes us on the story of Kaya Clark from 1952 to 1970, and it shows her growing up by herself in the swamplands somewhere in North Carolina. It shows her segregation from the rest of the town, touching on themes like social and racial isolation, loneliness, nature, and personal growth. We're drawn by the character of Kaya, her curiosity with the world around her, and her real love of nature. Owens is able to showcase her background as a wildlife scientist through her vivid descriptions of Kaya's universe. Female fireflies draw in strange males with dishonest signals and eat them. Mantis females devour their own mates. Female insects, Kaya thought, know how to deal with their lovers. So whether you like murder mysteries, coming-of-age novels, or romance, I'd suggest picking up Where the Crawdads Sing. So the next book that I recommend is Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton, and it follows the story of Eli Bell, a 12-year-old who's found himself in an absolutely chaotic situation. From his drug-dealing stepfather, to his mute brother, to an ex-convict of a babysitter, Eli has a lot on his plate. He's faced with so many challenges, family division, a crime syndicate, but through it all, he's able to keep his head up high and create a why for himself, a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning for him to get through it. You're really rooting for Eli at the very start of the novel, and the last 100 pages have you absolutely hooked. It's a compelling read and something that I'd suggest picking up. So the next book that I'd suggest picking up is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and it was published back in 1932, and Huxley creates this dystopian world where everybody's artificially engineered and there's an intelligence-based hierarchy. You have alphas, betas, deltas, epsilons, gammas, and each of them has their own role in the hierarchy. The state controls its people by artificially creating them, and the epsilons are forced to be at the bottom of the intelligence hierarchy. They're conditioned to like doing basic and menial jobs, while the alphas at the top of the hierarchy get to reap the rewards from that. Yet this world is an interesting one because the state doesn't control its people through tyranny or fear or a dictatorship. Instead, the state controls its people through happiness, through the administration of soma, which is a drug that induces the state of pleasure. And in doing so, the novel shows its conflict between happiness and being truly free. Noah Harari comments on the book saying that reading Brave New World is a far more disconcerting experience because it is obvious that there must be something dreadfully wrong, but you are hard-pressed to put your finger on it. The world is peaceful and prosperous, and everyone is supremely satisfied all the time. What could possibly be wrong with that? I think in a world where everybody is artificially happy, this puts a restriction on our freedoms and the ability to experience emotions and feelings that are intrinsic to human nature. Reading compelling literature, experiencing love, or rooting for the underdog in a sports match. These are all things that wouldn't be interesting if we didn't have the counterbalancing emotions of boredom, of loneliness, of loss. So if you're looking for a fresh new perspective on what happiness means, I suggest picking up Brave New World. Well, that's my 3-month update on my reading challenge. And I hope I've convinced you that reading fiction is really enjoyable and there's also a lot of benefits to be gained from it as well. If you're thinking of getting into reading, I'd suggest setting your own reading goal, and if you need an accountability partner, feel free to add me as a friend on Goodreads so that we can track our progress. I'll put my profile in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, remember to hit that like button and to subscribe to see more content like this. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, this was Sebastian. Stay sharp.